Today we're going to start our first exercise, a practice Bible study in 1 John. The first thing you're going to need to do is to print off a copy of 1 John, make a sacrificial text that you can mark up and write all over. I put a link at the bottom for one that's already formatted for you that you can just print right out. But if you read the last or watched the last video and practice learning how to use the tool, the manuscript maker is there for you to be able to make your own. So maybe this is another chance for you to practice that as well. Okay, the three things that we're going to do today is to capture these chunks of thought. We're going to go through and we're going to kind of divide up the text and see if we can find everywhere where the thoughts transition. Then we're going to go back and we're going to search for the connecting words, the fors, the because, the thus and therefores. And then after that, we're going to go back and we're going to caption each one of those chunks of thought. So follow me as we go over to the document and get to work. Okay, so here we go with the first part of the exercise. Like I said, I'm going to do it on the first page, but you're going to continue this whole process throughout the entire book. First thing we're doing is chunking or blocking the thoughts and ideas. And as you can see, I take a nice little pencil and I lightly mark each one of the areas where I see a change of thought. And so I kind of clump an idea, clump an idea, clump an idea together. We're not going to try to label it yet. Right now we're just trying to notice it. So go through the whole document front to back. Another thing too is sometimes I'm not really sure if I should put a split or not a split. So in this case, I put one and then just put a question mark for it to be reviewed later. Now that we've finished our first exercise, we're going to move on to the second one. What we're going to do is look for connecting words. Words like but, because, so that, for, therefore, and then any if-then statements. So you can see I went through and I circled and in pencil any of those connecting statements. The reason pencil is so helpful right now is we don't want colors to pop off. Later on, we're going to use colors to bring out our ideas. So anything that's just kind of bedrock, foundational, structural, I like to do in pencil. So that, and, if, there's one that's a but and an if. Now here's an example of a thought that is an if-then statement. If we say that we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. In there's an implied then. If we say we have fellowship with him and while we walk in the darkness, then we lie and do not practice the truth. So I circled the if and I wrote in the T for then. And there, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times you're going to find that you have to write in the T. You might find it like that throughout the rest of the document as well. So in this one area too, to take note, the if comes after the then, so I wrote a little arrow to connect the two in backwards order. Now these words are so important because they are the joining words, they're the connecting words, they're the fitting words. They're like the mortar in the bricks that tells you how all these things go together. It's going to be extremely helpful for us when we start to caption our thoughts on the left side here, because it's going to give us some assurance that how these ideas fit together. So take this exercise, go through the whole document, see if you can find these particular words throughout it. Now, as you go through the whole document, looking for the connecting words, I also want you to see if you can observe any purpose statements or any statements that answer the question, why is this being written? As you can see, I highlighted one for you up here just to kind of give you an example. It says, that which we have seen and heard, we proclaim also to you, so that you too may have fellowship with us. So it gives us a clue to why is this letter being written. It's written so that we can have fellowship with them. So as you go through the whole book, see if you can find, there's a total of 4. And I'll give you a hint, 3 of them are on this first page, 1 is towards the end. 4 statements that point to the purpose of why this letter was being written. Now we're going to move on to captioning thoughts over here on the left side, but before I do that, I want to point out a couple little details that I forgot to mention. One is in the use of the word and. You could be using the word and as either the end of a list, like 1, 2, and 3, or it could be as a supporting thought, 1, 2, 3, and ABC. So you're only going to want to circle the and that has to do with including an additional thought. Leave off any ands that have to do with a list. The other thing, piece of detail, is that when you highlight, try to stay right on the words, because I think later on you're going to find that sometimes you want to underline a section of it or circle around it, and you don't want to let your highlight get too out of control. Just enough color to attract your attention there. Now here we go with captioning the thoughts. So this first little chunk from here to here, that I categorized it as testify. It's about, hey, we're going to witness to something. We were witnesses to something, and we're going to tell you about that thing. And so that's kind of what that thought seemed to me to be about. You might put a totally different label on it. I'm just giving you an example. Feel free. I mean, this is about you making your own observations, but I wanted to just give you something concrete to look at and to consider. This next thought from here to here, it seemed to be a purpose statement. Like I keyed in on the, so that you too may have fellowship with us. The why is he writing this letter? Why is he telling us, or why is he testifying? This next little piece here, and that's, don't forget where I had the question mark, because I didn't know if the message and the test should go together or separate. So just for better definition, I kept the message separate, just this one little line here. And it was a message that was a simple statement about God. So testifying to something, there's a reason for it, and they're testifying to this message. Now this next section, a little bit longer, I called that a test. That was how I captioned it. It seemed to be a test about whether you're in fellowship, whether you've received forgiveness, and there's a lot of if-then statements in there that helped me to even see that. This next chunk here, that I titled or gave the caption of a solution. It seemed to be an answer to the test, right? If this test made you anxious, then there was a little bit of hope. There was a little bit of a solution that came afterwards. So I titled that one solution. And then this next chunk here seemed to be another test. So I went testify, purpose, a message, test, a solution to the test, and another test. This one seemed to be a little bit different as opposed to forgiveness and fellowship. It seemed to be about knowing God and abiding in him. Also, I left off this little chunk here because that went on to the next page, and we're just going to stick to this page itself. But that's what I did to caption the thoughts. Go through it yourself, finish the entire book, put a caption over there on the left. You can always change it later. You can modify it. These lines are still modifiable. Be loose in this process. You're just trying to look at the storyboard and then caption the storyboard and the chunks as it moves along. All right, there we go. That's your first exercise, your first assignment. Get to work. I mean, this is a discipline, right? These are the words that Paul used, athletic words and soldierly words with it. And please forgive the low tech. I know paper on walls and sticky boards and stuff like that is not the highest and latest technology out there, but hey, we're soldiers, right? We are not concerned about pretty, we're concerned about effective and useful. So I hope that that's effective and useful. If so, then it's accomplished its purpose. If not, one of you guys out there can give me some tips on how to do it better with more technological tools. The next video is going to be part 2 of this same exercise. We're going to build off of it. It's going to get a lot more colorful. So we're going to bust out our gel pens and our highlighters, and we're going to look for key ideas. We're going to look for repeated words. We're going to dig a little bit deeper, and both actually, literally, and metaphorically, it's going to get a lot more colorful. So this was about defining the structure and the bedrock. Now we're going to get to the juicy ideas and the meat of the study. Communication's hard, right? It is work, and we trust that these writers, as they were inspired by God to bring revelation of God, were very specific in the use of words. And so this discipline, this labor, is about getting into the mind of the writer, and therefore into the mind of God and what he wanted to communicate to us. But don't forget, it is work, it is labor, it's a discipline. Don't fall asleep in the middle of it, and if you do, just pick back up and start where you left off. I look forward to doing some more with you on the next video.